Okay, today I'm going to show you how to replace a ceramic disc cartridge on a kitchen mixer tap. Now the particular tap we've got today is a twin lever mixer tap. So that means that there's a cartridge or a ceramic disc cartridge for the hot side and also for the cold side. But you can get mixer taps that have just one cartridge that controls both the hot and cold side. But what you'd find is there's just one lever in that particular instance that you move up and down or to the left and right that controls the hot and cold. But in this particular instance, we've got a twin lever ceramic disc cartridge, and I'm going to be replacing the cold cartridge. So if the tap was leaking, you can't really repair them, you have to replace the cartridge. Okay, so to do the job, we're going to need some tools, and we're going to need an adjustable spanner. We're going to need a static spanner. Okay, we're going to need some sort of measuring device. Okay, and then we're going to need an Allen key. Now, to do the job, you need to turn the cold water off and open the lever into the open position and let any water drain out of the system. Now, I've turned the water off a little while ago and drained the system, so there's none coming out in this particular instance, but don't be surprised if it takes a few minutes for the water to fully empty from the system. Okay, the second thing we need to do before we start the works is to put the plug in the sink. Now the reason for that is that we have got to remove a little grub screw on the lever handle, and they can quite easily fall out and drop down the sink, so the last thing you want to be doing is trying to retrieve those from the trap underneath the sink. Okay, so put the plug in the sink. Okay, so we'll start the job then. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is to remove the handle, and to do that you put the Allen key, it's normally underneath the lever, and you'll find a little hole there, and you have to locate it in the grub screw and loosen the grub screw. Now in this particular example, the grub screw you need to turn the Allen key clockwise to remove the grub screw. Okay. Normally just a couple of half turns is enough to sufficiently loosen the lever to allow you to take it off. Okay, and there's the lever come off. Now this particular lever's come off quite easy, and the reason for that is I've had the lever off a few times today in preparation for this video. But you can find that sometimes you get a little bit of corrosion happening in there, so it can be a little bit difficult to pull off. What I normally suggest is if it's very difficult, is to actually spray some WD-40 in there about a day before you're looking to do the work. That way it helps to loosen, and lubricate the splines there, and allows that lever to come off a little bit easier. Okay, so we've removed the lever head and we put that to the side. We then get our adjustable spanner and we put it in on the end of the ceramic disc cartridge nut. Okay, and I always put another an adjustable spanner across. A pair of pump pliers across the adjustable spanner to move until you crack the nut. Okay, and then once you've cracked the nut, then use a fixed head spanner or a static spanner to remove the cartridge. This particular cartridge you need to turn anti-clockwise to loosen. It is normally anti-clockwise. Okay, and then once it's removed, there'll be a little bit of water just in the head of the tap. Okay, so with this particular cartridge, I'm not going to replace it because it's perfectly good and it works well. But when you've got a new cartridge, just a couple of things to check really. The first one is that you've got a rubber washer on the new cartridge, and that's the rubber washer just there. Okay, if it's a new cartridge, you should have one in, but just double check that you have got one. The second thing to check is that you've got the right coloured cartridge. And in this particular instance, we've got a blue cartridge for the cold side. So don't try and put a hot cartridge in a blue outlet, because it won't work. The lever will work the wrong way. Okay. The other thing to check is that the spline size is the correct size. So I normally recommend doing this actually before you take the cartridge out, and just put a measure across the spline. And you can see with this one, I've got a 6.5mm length of spline. Just double check that the new spline is 6.5mm. If it's not, then obviously take the ones that you've got back to the merchants and get the correct size spline. Some common spline sizes are 6.5, 8, 10.5. So you can see there's quite a few different ones. So there is a possibility that you could get the wrong spline size. If you do, what you'll find is that lever won't locate properly into the correct depth on the spline. Okay, so that's the tap disconnected. So now to put the tap back, we just do the reverse of what we've done to disconnect. And it's a clockwise direction to tighten up. So we use our static spanner to get it to its sort of biting point. Then the adjustable on the end, and just nip him up until he's nice and tight. Okay, and then relocate the lever. Just check that it turns in the correct direction. So down is on for this particular instance. So if you got it there, obviously you're going to be the wrong way. So okay, and then retighten the Allen key underneath. So this time it's anti-clockwise to close. Okay, that's nice and tight. Just check that it can't pull it off, and that's the cartridge removed. So the only other thing to do then would be to turn the water back on and check that everything works okay. Okay, so that today ends the tutorial for how to replace a ceramic disc cartridge on a kitchen mixer tap.